For the last few years over on Instagram, I've been setting a festive turning challenge at the start of each December. The community over there has really got behind it and people seem to really enjoy getting involved. So I'll do a demonstration and people will then share the results of their turning, trying to sort of copy what I've been doing. I thought now I'm over here on YouTube, I'd bring it over here too. With it being better for slightly longer format videos, I thought we could perhaps get a bit more detail in my YouTube videos, but I'm going to do a demo and then hopefully you'll get involved, maybe share what you've been doing as well. Feel free to tag me in any videos that you do, that you make of you turning this item as well. Generally they're skew chisel based projects and this year is no exception. I do like to try and encourage people to use their skews. I know a lot of people do have a bit of a skew allergy, so by all means feel free to use a spindle gouge if you prefer, but if you will use a skew, that would be fantastic. I hope you enjoy the demo and I hope you'll get involved. Merry Christmas to you. This year's challenge is a combination of some of what I've already done on Instagram in previous years. We're going to make a snowman, but as a Christmas tree decoration. I'm going to start off giving you the demo of how to do the actual turning, and then I'll show you how I've coloured it and done a little bit of pyro. It's very simple decoration that I've done. By all means, this is a festive thing. You can really go to town, add colour, add texture. You can knit him a little scarf if you want to. You can do exactly what you want. This is very much just a template to give you an idea of something to turn that's very seasonal and something you can stick on your Christmas tree and enjoy for years to come. So I'll be using my signature beading and parting tool. You can use whatever skew chisel you prefer. And as I say, if you're not a fan of a skew chisel, by all means, use a spindle gouge. It's really doesn't really matter that much. It's more about getting involved in the project and getting you out to your workshops more than anything else. But a skew chisel, this is perfect for a skew chisel challenge. You want a nice pale bit of timber to snowman after all. So I've got a bit of maple. It's 32mm square and 180mm long. And for my American cousins, that is about 1.25 inches square and about 7 inches long. So again, you can play with those, but I find that's quite a nice size. So let's fire up the lathe and we'll get this roughed down. My initial cuts are just to take those corners off. Sometimes if you come in from the end, you can lift a big corner up and it can be a bit unpleasant. So we'll take that off there and we'll go the other way as well. And then we can work across and just plane this down into a nice cylinder. Again, you can use a spindle roughing gouge, and generally speaking, I do for roughing down. A spindle roughing gouge works, in my opinion, slightly better than a skew, but in the spirit of the challenge, where this entire thing can be turned with a skew chisel, I am gonna just do just that. So nice little planing cut along there. Once we're a cylinder, that's all I need really. So I'm going to just clean off this end first. You can see it's a little bit wobbly. That's just because I've cut it on the bandsaw. So I'm going to do a slicing cut with the tip of my skew, slicing down to the live centre. Now, I'm going to be careful not to touch the live centre. These live centres are hardened steel, so it wouldn't do the tool a great deal of good. And the little nib that's left in there, I can tidy off at the end with a chisel. Just a few pairing cuts with a chisel will sort that out. So the first cuts are the top of the top hat, and I want that about 20mm. So 2 widths of the parting tool. So 1 and 2. So around here, you can see how fun maple is to turn. You get all these lovely shavings coming off. It's a really very nice wood to work with. There and there. And the brim of the hat is going to be sort of around here. We'll do a slicing cut down this side just to deal with any torn grain. Sometimes that peeling cut can leave a little bit of torn grain, and the band around the hat is going to be about there, something like that. So proper top hats tend to be quite straight, but I do like the look of them when they have this little curve down to the band. I don't know if that's a real thing or if that's something you just see in kind of cartoons, but my snowman is going to have that little detail. So just a little planing cut down to the top of the band. That's nice, and we'll just tidy up the band itself Just there. And then we're going to do a peeling cut down for the head of the snowman. So I want the head of the snowman to be around about the same diameter as the band, so I can eyeball that, that's no problem about there. And the head wants to be about 15 mil, so 1.5 cuts wide. So around that kind of width. Now, the first thing I'm going to measure is the body here. This doesn't need to be any more than about 25 mil or an inch, so we'll drop in a peeling cut and bring in calipers just to measure that, bring that down to 25 mil. Same at this end. Just so I know roughly where I'm aiming for, so we can plane that down. Again, just enjoy those planing cuts. If any of these cuts are not familiar to you, there is a series here on YouTube, there's a playlist that I've done with a series of videos looking at the different cuts that you'll make with a skew chisel. So by all means take a look at that if any of these cuts that I'm explaining to you don't really ring a bell. So these planing cuts, there's a video on planing cuts, there's a video on peeling cuts, slicing cuts, rolling beads. There's also a video on getting catches, but I'm sure you can probably do that without my help. Just enjoy these planing cuts, enjoy creating those shavings. That's really what this is. This is my less natural cut, pushing away from me, being a left-hander, going towards the headstock. My natural cut goes from the headstock in the other direction. There we go. Not taking, not rushing here. So a slicing cut using the tip of the tool down the underside of the brim. That just ensures that there's no torn grain on that brim. So really gentle little sort of slicing cut across there. We can just take the corners off as well, just so that that brim feels nice to touch. Excellent. And then a V cut here. So we're going to do a V cut where the body meets the head, and that's going to give us space to roll both of those shapes down into the neck. A little V cut in the top here. Now it doesn't need to be very deep, because if I roll too much at the top of the head, it kind of looks like the hat's perched on top, and that doesn't really look quite right. But I don't mind a little bit of curve there, so a little bit of a roll just with the tip of the tool. And the main shaping is down at the bottom here. Now, normally I like to use the tip of the tool when I am rolling a bead, but I can't quite get in there because with the brim sort of in the way a little bit. So I'm going to use the whole tool in a planing cut, and I'm going to just roll. And as I roll, I can pick up the tip of the tool. You can see the tip is engaged there, and that gives me that ability to plane, slice, using the tip of the tool to get the shape of the head. I want a more rounded shape. I don't really want a kind of Lego head shape. That looks quite good. I'm fairly happy with that. The body wants to be about 30 mil, so about 3 tool widths across. So about there. And the widest point I'm going to put on that lower third. So the body itself is going to be a little bit kind of teardrop or perhaps egg shaped. So we're going to pick up on the tip of the tool there. Slice it round. Slice it round, bringing the tool round as I go. Just a little jump there at the end, so we just tidy that up. V cut here. I'm going to roll that around. Using the tip of the tool. Now maple is quite dense, so you can't be too greedy with it. You take too big a cut and the tool will just sort of jam up a little bit. So really take light cuts. Lots of light cuts are going to give you a much better result than trying to take big, heavy cuts here. So we'll pick that cut up on the tip of the tool, and we'll just sort of slice that around into the neck of the snowman. That's better. Tidy him up this side as well. Good, that's better. And then the top of the kind of icicle, We can roll that around, again using the tip of the tool. One more. Take your time, no rush. Yeah. We'll have a little bit of waste at this end, maybe 5mm or so. And then we're just going to do planing cuts in this direction down towards the headstock, down towards the drive centre. Slight lift of the handle as I'm planing, and that will create this taper that I'm after. Nice bit of control of the tool though. What you don't want to do is slip past and bash the tool into the drive centre or the chuck. So develop that sense of touch, that sense of feel, so that you can control the tool properly as you're working through. That's coming along nicely. But what you can see at the moment is this looks a little bit kind of like a carrot, which I guess is kind of fitting for the snowman, but it's not really what I want. What I'm looking for is if I take this and make this more of a sweeping curve, it reduces the weight here, and that will visually lighten it, but also actually physically lighten it as well, because there's no point making really heavy decorations that are going to hang on a tree, because it's just going to make the branches sag and wilt. So actually making it a little bit lighter doesn't hurt, but I think it looks better as well, rather than just a big old kind of carroty point on the bottom. So that's coming along quite nicely. There's only been a hint of chatter. I'm taking fairly light cuts. I'm not rushing this at all. Just enjoy the process. If you are getting any kind of chatter, you can bring yourself round and just adjust your front hand grip. The thumb goes on top just to stabilise the tool, and the fingers at the back of the work. So we're kind of pinching the tool and the wood together and stabilising the wood as we're going. And what that does, that just reduces any chatter that might be there. There is a video from a couple of weeks back on my YouTube that just describes various techniques of steadying as you're working. So if you're not sure, go and take a look at that. You do want a light touch, really develop a light touch as you're working. You can't be too heavy-handed with this, really. It's going to vibrate, it's going to eventually snap if you're too heavy-handed. Just a little bit of fuzz in there that I didn't like. So we'll go again. Just a planing cut. You can see how light that is. Getting really nice shavings off that. Nearly there. One more. And before that gets too thin, I'm going to give that a little sand. Yeah, let's give that a sand. That's coming along quite nicely. So just a bit of 240. I'll sand the whole thing. Again, can't put too much pressure on. I don't want to snap this off before we're ready. We'll sand down this sweep here. We'll work around the body. And if you've got, if you've tooled it well, the sanding should be fairly minimal. If anyone's ever told you that they've never tweaked the shape of a bead, or the shape of a round over like that with their sandpaper, they are probably lying to you. So in an ideal world, you've turned a perfect shape and all you're doing is just sanding it smooth, but occasionally a little bit of tweaking does happen, and that's all right. Don't be too hard on yourself, it's absolutely fine. Even the professionals do it as well. So just sand all of those different areas, the band, the top of the hat, the brim, around his face, around his body, around down the icicle of the decoration, a bit across the top of the hat as well. Take the corner off, make sure there's no sharp edges, and that's looking pretty good. And we'll rub over that with a red abrasive pad as well. That just burnishes it and leaves a really lovely surface ready for if you want to finish it. Certainly ready for us to add our little details on there. So what I'm going to do here next is I'm going to add a bit of red marker pen, so a red Sharpie with a nice sharp point. We're just going to add A nice bright red band here, which is a nice touch. And then the black, I have tried it with a Sharpie. I had a few practices first, and I'm struggling to get right in the corner. So the way I'm doing this with the black colouring is with a little bit of spirit stain. So let me go and grab that, and we'll add a bit of stain to the hat. So I've slowed the lathe right down, so it's just spinning. It's spin about 600 RPM, so fairly slow. And I've got my smallest brush, and I've put some black spirit stain into the lid. Just give that a little dab off there, and we're just going to come in here. I'll put gloves on just because it seems to get everywhere, especially when the lathe's running. It's easy for it to sort of spatter up a little bit. So we're just going to get in here, really control it up into that corner. If you're running the lathe too fast when you're doing this, the black will splash all over the red band. So nice slow lathe speed is good for this. And then we can do the brim as well. Just sort of creep up on the details. There we go. And then the top of the brim too. You don't want too much stain. You can always add a bit more, but if you've got too much, it does tend, it's quite a wet, thin, wet stain. So get that right down into that corner. And then we'll just let that have a minute or two to dry. It dries very, very quickly, so it won't take very long at all. But we'll let that dry before I move on to parting it off and adding the next stage of decoration. Our little snowman's coming along quite nicely. The hat's dry now. We've got the nice red band, really nice pop of bright red, which is lovely and festive. Nice black colour of stain there. And now what I've got to do is take this down a bit more slender before I part it off. So let's fire up the lathe again. And I'm just going to carry on with some planing cuts. I'm going to bring my front hand around to support the tool and the wood as we make this thinner and thinner. Make sure, just feel it as you're working, make sure there's no lumps or bumps that you've added in there by accident. That's coming along quite nicely. While it's still got a bit of control, I'm just going in there with a bit of sandpaper. It's still thick enough to be able to do that. Much easier to sand while it's spinning than afterwards, so I'll do that where I can. Very light, but supporting it with my thumb. You'll see my thumb is between the work and the tool rest, but it's underneath, so it's quite safe. I would never do that the other way around. And then we're going to part this off. So I tend to just loosen off the headstock, the tailstock, the live center, just a little bit. It just means that when this parts off, it's less likely to jam, really. So we're just going to cut in a little kind of V cut with the tip of the tool, and that just drops away. So we'll stop the lathe. A little bit of abrasive just to tidy up the very tip. Just going to kind of round it over a little bit, just so there's nothing torn, nothing sharp or anything ugly down there. So it's nice and neat. And then give that a rub over with a bit of the red pad as well, so it's all finished nice and evenly. So the next thing to look at is giving our little snowman a face. Some of you might be surprised to find that I own a pyrography machine. I do. It doesn't come out very often, but it is fun to have a play every now and again. And I'm using this pen with this tiny little ball tip on the end, which is going to be ideal for adding the details to our snowman. So I've used a chisel and just pared off the unevenness at the top around where the live center entered, and I've added this little brass screw eye into that dimple. You can drill a pilot hole if you find it's a bit too tight to do. And I'm just going to have a look for a good area to add the details. And I think we'll just use the circular grain areas that are here. And I'm going to do it with a pencil initially just to make sure I'm happy, because with a pencil they can rub off. With a pyro pen they're quite permanent. So a little smile like that. So we're pretending these are kind of lumps of coal like the old days. don't think anybody uses coal these days, but I think trying to keep those in line should work quite well. So let's have a go with the pen. So I'm no master at this, but this is the simplest form of decoration. I'm trying to even those up. 2 eyes, 1 nose. Might go a touch lower than the pencil mark there. Yeah, that's good. And then 3 buttons. 2, 3. There is a festive snowman Christmas tree decoration. Obviously decorated very simply, but you can really go to town, add some colour, more colour, add some texture, knit a little scarf if you want to. Really go to town, really have fun. This is very much a template for you to take as a base for a project and roll with. I hope you'll enjoy joining in and having a go at the project. I'd love to see any videos you make of you having a go. But until the next video, enjoy your turning and have a very Merry Christmas, and I'll see you in the next video.